I had the sudden spark to go back and replay Dishonored, Arkane's 2012 immersive sim-ish stealth game. It's still a really fun game all these years later, and oh my god, it's almost been 10 years since it came out. Well, I guess this is kind of an anniversary video then. Replaying this game reminded me of a criticism that I see get thrown at it pretty often. For the last few years, I've seen the same argument crop up now and again, and each and every time, it makes me more than a little upset. A bit less than how I feel towards people who like Metal Gear Solid 5, and a little more than I know I should reasonably feel. But first, a quick rundown of what Dishonored is for those who haven't seen it in a very long time, or for those who haven't played it I guess, but be warned I will spoil some things in this video. Anyway, Dishonored is a game about revenge. You are Corvo Attano, the world's sexiest royal protector, who isn't very good at their job since their protectee, the Empress of Dunwall, gets murdered in front of his eyes within the first 10 minutes. Her death was orchestrated by a group of people that want power for themselves, and due to an unfortunate coincidence with Corvo arriving at the same day as the plot, he is then forced to take the blame for the Empress's murder. The conspirators also kidnap the Empress's daughter, Emily. What follows is a series of missions where Corvo must get his revenge on these traitors by going after them one by one, which culminates in Corvo saving the day and beating the bad guys. It's all fairly simple stuff, but that isn't what people tend to really focus on when talking about Dishonored. Instead, the real conversations occur over the game's overarching mechanic. It all stems from something called the Chaos system, which alters the game based on how you play it. The game has two states, low chaos and high chaos. Low chaos is a version of the game where Dunwall is a pretty chill place. There aren't as many zombies roaming about. Oh, yeah, there's zombies in this game. And things in general are fairly normal. High chaos, on the other hand, is a much darker version of the game's events that culminates in a more violent version of the experience. Low chaos is achieved by being a pacifist and going around the game without killing too many people. This is usually what you get in a pure stealth route and is considered to be the good moral path. High chaos is achieved by being a murderous psychopath and killing guards, maids, civilian zombies, and all targets that you see. No one is safe on a high chaos run, not even Emily. Doing different side missions and optional activities can also sway the balance in one direction or the other, though the defining factor tends to simply be how many people you kill. Clearly, high chaos is the more evil choice, right? In all honesty, there's not too much of a difference between low chaos and high chaos throughout the game. Most of the changes are fairly superficial and don't necessarily change the way the majority of levels play out. Honestly, the biggest change is the way certain characters react to the things you've done. For example, Emily gets rescued during the third mission, meaning she's around for the majority of the game and can witness what you do to get the job done. If you decide to kill everyone you see, she'll have a much darker outlook on Corvo and life in general. But if you decide to play the game with low chaos, her personality stays the same as it was at the start of the story. It's pretty easy to see these two pathways as separate moral choices and leave it at that. The problem is that some people seem to think that the chaos system is solely used to measure morality, and that the game punishes you for playing like a murdering psychopath by giving you a bad ending, while the intended way to play is actually to not use any of the cool powers which kill people, resulting in a playthrough with less death, more stealth, and more consideration for the lives of others. It might seem pretty clear by now, but I kind of hate this train of thought. The core of the frustration seems to stem from the idea that Dishonored is a cool stealth game with magic, and if you decide to use that magic, the game will punish you by giving you a bad ending. Not only is this kind of an annoying way to look at it, but in comparison to other stealth games, Dishonored is incredibly freeing. I still remember how Hitman Absolution would punish you for so much as sneezing, with a big score in the top left that kept telling you how much you suck. I also want to point out that the majority of abilities in Dishonored aren't used to kill people, so the core of this particular argument is kind of dumb. The high chaos route is not a form of punishment. If anything, it's a reward. The exact same can be said for low chaos, and this is because at their core, these are not moral pathways. is. Sure, if you have the choice to not kill someone, it may be better to do just that, but I don't really think that's simply a moral choice at that point. If that is a hard decision for you, then you probably shouldn't be playing this game. You should be going for a psych evaluation. Morals in Dishonored are intentionally designed to be extremely grey, even if the low chaos ending tries to present Corvo as this heavenly angel who purely believes in the righteous path. We all know that's bullshit. A low chaos run is actually way more fucked up than a high chaos run in some ways. For example, one of the missions has you going after the Pendleton twins, brothers from an aristocratic family. These guys are assholes through and through, so yeah, it's a good idea to deal with them. On high chaos, you would just kill them and be done with it. It's a fairly quick process, unless you decide to burn one of them alive with steam, or choose to slowly devour them with your magical pack of rats. In that case, yeah, it's not the quickest and painless of deaths. But on low chaos, you don't just kill them. No, instead, you partner up with a criminal who can go in there for you and send them to one of their own family's coal mines. The twins will have their tongues cut out and be forced to work, begging for someone to know who they are for the rest of their lives until they are worked to death. Now then, which decision seems more moral to you? The one where you kill them quickly, or the one where they are worked to the bones for decades and then die? I'm not saying that the latter option isn't what these guys deserve, but if you really sit down and think about the low chaos solution, it's pretty messed up. We can also look at Lady Boyle's last party for another messed up mercy option. During the party, a man walks up to you and gives you an alternative to killing your target. If you knock out Lady Boyle and bring her to the basement instead, the man kidnaps her and says this pretty messed up line. Again, at this point, I feel like it's more of a mercy to just stab them and be done with it. It's best to get the idea that chaos is purely a reflection of morals out of your head. Instead, the way that you should view chaos is purely as a reflection of playstyle, and every change that comes from low chaos or high chaos is to better suit that playstyle by the end. Low chaos presents you with a world that is much calmer and slower paced right up to the final level, which is posed as a careful stealth mission through a heavily guarded lighthouse. The high chaos version of this level is a goddamn civil war where the figureheads are trying to kill each other and you. If you want to go around and kill people and have a jolly old time doing so, then the world will view you as a mass murdering psychopath and change accordingly. If you play it in the opposite way, the world will be much more calm and civilized to reflect that. Now, the core argument that I see alongside this is that sometimes people simply don't like the fact that the game can change based on how you play. Some people don't want a slightly different experience tailored to your playstyle on a particular playthrough because you're just not that kind of person. Even if I think that's incredibly boring, I do see where that opinion is coming from. Part of the appeal of stealth games is being able to tackle the exact same level in various ways. And when the game changes those levels based on how you played in the previous missions, it can make the balancing and challenge a little weird. I absolutely understand that, but then I would say that that simply isn't what Dishonored is about. Almost all of Dishonored's characters are entirely morally grey. Everyone in this game has their own agenda and plans going on in the background. This is shown to you when you use the heart that you get from the outsider. Using the heart when looking at someone gives you a bit more context about who that character is. It could manifest in explaining how they feel at that present moment, or maybe it could reveal something from their past. This can reveal some interesting information about the main characters, and it also highlights just how much everyone is in it for themselves. The only character that this doesn't really apply to is Emily, but even that will change by the end of the game. This even applies to Corvo, who can decide exactly how he wants to take revenge. Dishonored is about a guy who is severely pissed off about the fact that everything was taken away from him. He has the skills and knowledge to single-handedly dismantle an entire empire in the span of a week. The real choice with Chaos is to show restraint. If Corvo doesn't show restraint and uses his powers to kill everyone he sees, then the reward he gets is a world born from blood. A world where disease ravages the land and the government has been destabilized to the point where people are fighting in the goddamn throne room. If Corvo does show restraint and decide to not go crazy with his powers, only using them as a last resort to do what needs to be done, then the reward he gets is a world that values that restriction. It's a world where death isn't the only answer to every problem. However, the means that got us to this point weren't exactly perfect either. But again, this isn't a good or bad ending we have here. What we have here is a distinct choice between restraint and the lack of restraint. In fact, the only bad ending in this game is one that stems from indecision. If Corvo freezes at the very last moment of the game, Emily can just die. It's also worth noting that this can only happen on a high chaos playthrough, and if Corvo can't commit to the path he's chosen at the end, it ends up resulting in a world that's doomed to fail. Dishonored's chaos system is not there to punish the player for killing someone or not. It's there to make a playthrough meaningful based on the way someone plays the game. Does it change the entire scope of the experience? No. No, it doesn't, but it changes just enough to acknowledge the path you're going down. The chaos system is there to reward you and give you a scenario that acknowledges how you play, and the idea that this is somehow a punishment instead is one that I find baffling. If you want to play Dishonored like a murderous psychopath, then you're getting a playthrough that will reflect that, and if you play the game as a righteous ghost, you're getting something that reflects that too. If you're annoyed that the game doesn't let you kill indiscriminately without giving you an ending that's suitably grim, I think you're missing the point of the game. Again, if that's the route you want to go down, you should want to see more chaos come to the world, and if you want a world that values lives instead of constantly killing each other, then a low chaos route would suit you better. It's so rare to see a stealth game actually acknowledge these two distinct playstyles and give them direct representation in the game. The only other game I can think of that does this to a certain extent is Deus Ex, where rewards and character interactions can heavily change based on how you play. In both instances, these are systems that reward players that go down these paths. And while it's true that this system has no bearing on the ending of Deus Ex, you can still see the similarities. Ultimately, I think chaos is meant to be so much more than just a moral decision. In fact, most of its effects target the gameplay rather than the story. And the best part about all this is that I actually think the chaos system is a little half-baked. There's nothing to really reflect the playstyle you've chosen until around the last third of the game. Before then, the differences are so minimal that they are easily missed. You likely won't notice that anything has changed until you get closer to the game's conclusion, and this is a problem since it means the majority of the playthrough is unchanged no matter what you do. With that being said, you can certainly see the attempt here, and it's not something that should be dismissed. It's sad that more stealth games don't try to acknowledge this sort of thing. Not only does it add to the replayability of a title, but it also makes the act of sparing a life feel so much more meaningful. It makes you actually want to not simply kill every enemy, as opposed to begrudgingly sparing everyone because you're playing a stealth game and have to play the game as a complete ghost or its mission failed. I'm gonna leave this video by saying that I don't think chaos is necessarily a morality system, and the game never really presents it this way either. Dishonored simply gives you the tools to interact with its sandbox in any way you want, and it does its best to make whichever playstyle you decide to go with matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not fair to say it's a punishment since you're in control of the experience and have full control over what you do. The chaos system is not perfect, however. In fact, there are lots of things I would add or change, but the core of what's here works as intended, and I wish it was something that Arcane would develop even further in future iterations of the series.